The 4th annual Law Enforcement Basketball Tournament is coming, March 17th through 23rd. Law enforcement basketball teams from throughout the Caribbean will compete as we display the Caribbean spirit of camaraderie. Dominica, Cayman Islands, Turks and Caicos, Trinidad and Tobago, all competing for the prestigious championship trophy. But they have to go through the Royal Bahamas Defense Force and Her Majesty's prisons before they can meet defending champions, the Royal Bahamas Police Force. There will also be a clash of the East versus West Senior Boys High School Championship, along with the annual slam dunk and three-point competition. The winner will receive a scholarship prize. That's right, the 4th annual Law Enforcement Basketball Tournament, March 17th through 23rd. You don't want to miss this one.
Good evening, Bahamas. This is NB12, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Here's what's making news tonight. The Prime Minister responds to work permit criticisms. 2 murders recorded overnight. The police need your help solving the crimes. The Hurricane Sandy exigency order extended, plus a special treat for special needs children. Those stories and much more on the way. I'm Nakia DeVoe, and NB12 starts right now. Thanks again for joining us here at NB12. Prime Minister Perry Christie says while he expects some people will say they can no longer do business due to government's proposed changes to the immigration policy, he believes that in the long run, Bahamians and the economy will benefit. Christie says hoteliers should meet with the government to discuss plans to stop issuing work permits to maids, housekeepers, and laborers within a year before jumping to conclusions.
I expect some people to announce that they could no longer do business. But there comes a time in a country when the most, I think, a great effort has to be made to stimulate thought and reflection on where we ought to be going.
In his address in the House of Assembly on Monday, Foreign Affairs and Immigration Minister Fred Mitchell said maids, housekeepers, and laborers make up the majority of work permit applications at the Department of Immigration. He said that in 2012, there were 4,141 work permits granted in those categories. The government is also pledging greater scrutiny of work permits beyond domestics and residential labors. President and Managing Director at Atlantis, George Marcantonis, said officials at the hotel are very concerned about the policy change, noting that the current foreign staff complement at the hotel is critical to Paradise Island's success. Christie insists that the government would not make any decision that is not in the best interest of the Bahamian people.
I would expect that if a minister of the government makes a particular point that they regard as harmful, if they are unaware of what that point actually is, what he's intending by making the point and raising the issue, then they should speak to the minister or speak to myself as the Prime Minister with a view to getting full clarification. But I think it would be entirely wrong to conclude that we would deliberately set about, right, to cause the economy of the Bahamas to falter when it is so important that we bring it back as quickly as possible.
Senior Vice President of Administration and External Affairs at Baha Mar, Robert Sands, called for more clarity on the work permit issue. Members of the Free National Movement called the plan excessively aggressive. And Democratic National Alliance leader Branville McCartney says such a policy could stop the recovery of the economy. Christie said he is not surprised by their criticisms, but Mitchell's statement reflect the concerns of the Bahamian people, and that is who the government serves.
These are sort of very, I guess, provocative questions that he has raised because it reflects the concerns we have as a country, where we continue to have a very handicapping unemployment rate and people coming forward with the capacity to do jobs that work permits are being granted for. The question for us is, are we to give up entirely on categories of employment on the basis that Bahamians will no longer be able to participate in those areas? Ought not we to introduce a dynamic training program on a public-private sector basis where we have a more aggressive program training Bahamians to perform roles at the standards the same employers who question the policy would wish to have? Or are there some work permits, some areas where foreigners forever will be expected to be employed in?
Christie said the necessary inquiries will be made into cases where concerns have been expressed, and if there is something that needs to be fixed, the government will fix it. Two separate shooting incidents in the Camp Road and Blair areas during the early morning hours, marking the 18th and 19th homicides recorded so far this year. Police say both men knew their attackers and they need the public's help in developing leads. Paige McCartney reports.
According to officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Superintendent Paul Roll, the first incident happened at around 12:35 in the morning in the Apache Alley off Camp Road, where two gunmen chased down and killed the victim. Roll said the victim was sitting near a car wash with two men when they noticed two assailants approaching them from Camp Road. The victim ran and the gunmen chased after him.
We understand that there was some threat made on this victim. He never came to us to report it. He was in prison on remand for a serious offense and was granted bail 2 weeks ago. And while in prison, I'm understanding that he was involved in some altercation with a group up there. And once he exited, they hunted him down and executed him. That's really what I call it.
Roll said police believe the 28-year-old victim knew his attackers. In fact, according to Roll, preliminary investigations suggest that the victim was involved in some sort of feud and a hit was put out on him.
Both of them produced handguns and began discharging them in his direction. The male fell and the men caught up with him and they discharged their weapon several times again at him, striking him multiple times about the body while he laid on the ground, fatally wounding him.
Police say the second incident happened just minutes later in this quiet neighborhood of Little Blair. Police say a 45-year-old man and his female companion were exiting his home just before 1 p.m. when they were attacked by a group of men that came out of a silver vehicle.
Despite seeing the suspicious vehicle with heavily tinted windows, the victim and his female companion attempted to enter his car when they were approached by three gunmen.
Three men exited this vehicle that we know now, and upon seeing these men come towards him, he ran. Two of the men pursued him, discharging a shot at him, and the third male pursued the female, where they threw her to the ground and held her. They took both the man and the woman back into the home, where they in turn searched the home. And as they were leaving, one of them turned around and shot the male to the chest.
The victim was taken to Princess Margaret Hospital, where he died soon after arrival. Roll said police are still trying to make sense of that incident. They say they don't know if the motive was robbery, but they know the victim knew his attackers. Police are appealing to anyone who may know anything about the incident to contact them.
They may have seen this car driving around in that area yesterday sometime. And if you think back, we asked them to think back. And if you remember seeing this car, then, call us and see if you written down the number, and that may help us as well.
Police say they do not believe that these two incidents were connected.
And even though the murder count stands at 19 for the year, police say it's still down by about 25% compared to this time last year. For MB12, I'm Paige McCartney.
Meantime, family members of missing Chinese national Lu Guangdong are here in New Providence looking for answers. They feel not enough effort is being made to find their loved one. The 38-year-old Baha Mar employee was last seen Sunday swimming at Jaws Beach. Guangdong is 5'7" tall and of slim build. He was one of 4 men who went fishing in a kayak off Jaws Beach. 3 of the men were found earlier this week. According to authorities, one man, another 28-year-old, jumped overboard and attempted to swim to shore as conditions worsened. Defense Force officers rescued him in waters off Jaws Beach Sunday evening. Authorities confirmed that a second man was rescued in waters near Clifton Pier, and a vessel named Anger Management picked up a third man later on. Well, after years of delaying maintenance at BEC's Clifton Pier power plant, Executive Chairman Leslie Miller said the corporation is looking to pump hundreds of millions of dollars into overdue upgrades. Celeste Nixon reports.
Over the years, a lot of pressure has been put on BEC's Blue Hills power plant, and Miller says this will change once improvements are made at Clifton Pier.
Miller said the corporation plans to increase capacity by 126 megawatts at the Clifton Pier plant, making it the baseload center for New Providence, generating 80% more power.
We're also looking at putting up additional plant capacity in New Providence, 126 megawatts at Clifton, so that Clifton would be the baseload center for New Providence. That Clifton alone would generate in excess of 75 to 80% of the electricity to be used in New Providence.
Miller said the move could save Bahamian consumers a minimum of $50 million per year and will require a $350 to $385 million investment.
Miller says the investment would generate returns immediately.
That alone will save the Bahamian people in excess of $50 million per annum, minimum $50 million, and as much as $80 to $100 million per annum if we were to do so. It's going to be very costly. It's going to cost around $350 to $385 million. But the investment would be a good investment because you would see the benefits accruing immediately after the implementation of that new plan that we're hoping to construct at Clifton.
Additionally, Miller said in an effort to save consumers as much money as possible, BEC is working on procuring fuel from cheaper suppliers. Miller also said the corporation is currently assessing to what extent renewable energy technology can be integrated to gain independence from foreign oil. Reporting for MB12, I'm Celeste Nixon.